Imagine standing alone in a frozen wilderness where survival depends on a single unexpected act of kindness. Today we witness a powerful story of compassion found in the harshest cold. The landscape is ruled by ice and silence, where winter is a relentless force. In this unforgiving wilderness, a lone wolf struggled just to see another sunrise. The storm transformed into a violent blizzard, lifting sheets of snow and erasing every trace of direction. For an injured animal, survival seemed almost impossible. The wolf was weak. Each step through the deep snow demanded energy it no longer had. Its fur, once thick and protective, was weighed down by ice. A wound along its side had frozen partially shut, draining the last of its strength. Hunger pressed heavily on its body. Days had passed since its last hunt, and worst of all, it was alone. Without its pack, separation often means death. Without help, it would not survive the storm. As the blizzard intensified, the wolf collapsed. Its breathing slowed, and the world faded into a blur of white. But this was not the end. In the heart of a dangerous blizzard, a small rescue team was finishing a routine patrol. They recognized the danger, but fate had other plans when they noticed faint tracks crossing the snow. The tracks were almost invisible, dragging slightly as if the creature had been injured. Following them into the storm would be risky, but something about them felt urgent. Compassion begins when someone chooses not to look away. They moved deeper into the forest, guided only by instinct beneath the drifting snow. They found him, a wolf too exhausted to run. He lifted his head slightly, watching without resistance, as if he understood he could no longer fight alone. In that quiet surrender, they realized they were witnessing a moment between life and death. The choice they made next would change everything. They wrapped a thick thermal blanket around the animal as gently as possible. The warmth alone seemed to trigger a faint response. The wolf's breathing deepened slightly, and its body trembled from the shock of warmth returning after hours in freezing conditions. One rescuer checked a visible wound along its side. It wasn't fresh. Infection was likely setting in. Combined with starvation, the situation was severe. Working together, they lifted the wolf onto a rescue sled. Every movement had to be slow and controlled to avoid panic. The journey back felt endless. Wind pushed against them with relentless force, erasing their footprints as soon as they were made. In moments like this, compassion becomes physical effort, heavy, exhausting, and uncertain. Their focus stayed on one goal, reaching shelter. The faint outline of their vehicle finally appeared. Relief spread through the group, but the work was far from over. Slowly, color began returning. The wolf weakly lapped at some water. It meant the fight for survival wasn't over yet. The drive to the rehabilitation center was tense. Every few minutes, someone checked the wolf's breathing, watching for any sign of decline. The road conditions were dangerous, covered in ice and nearly invisible. But turning back was no longer an option. When they finally arrived, a veterinary team was already waiting, ready to face the true extent of the wolf's condition. Severe dehydration, malnutrition, a deep muscle injury, and frostbite forming along the edges of its paws. The veterinarians worked quickly but calmly to stabilize the animal. Fluids were administered and the wound was cleaned. Warm blankets surrounded the animal while monitors tracked its vital signs. Throughout it all, the wolf remained remarkably calm. It watched the humans carefully, alert yet strangely trusting. Perhaps some deeper recognition existed, an understanding that these were helpers, not predators. Slowly, the wolf's breathing stabilized. The storm outside continued to rage, but inside, hope began to replace uncertainty. The rescue was only the beginning. During the first night, the wolf drifted in and out of sleep. Its body struggled to adjust, but every movement was monitored. Every breath mattered. By morning, the first encouraging sign appeared. The wolf finally lifted its head. This journey was just beginning. It was only for a few seconds, but the movement changed everything. Awareness had returned to the wolf. Its eyes followed the veterinarians carefully. Curiosity was finally replacing fear. Recovery officially began as the wolf accepted its first meal, reawakening its strength. Over the next several days, progress came in waves. Healing demanded a patience that only nature understands. One afternoon, the wolf attempted its first stand, balancing with a quiet, surprising determination. That single action represented survival. Trust, fragile but real, had finally begun to form. Movement returned faster than expected. Instinct guided every step toward a full recovery. The transformation was undeniable. Thick fur regained its shine as weight returned to its frame. With wounds healed, we now prepare for the ultimate goal, a return to the wild. This was always the ultimate goal. A wolf belongs to the wild, not to walls or routines. Remaining too long in human care risked weakening its natural instincts. Timing had to be perfect. The animal needed full strength to hunt, travel, and reconnect with its pack. Health checks confirmed full recovery. One evening, a distant howl echoed across the valley. The wolf answered with a signal of its own, a declaration of survival. Nature was calling it home. The morning of the release arrived quietly. Fresh snow covered the ground and the air was calm. It was time for restoration. The crate door opened. With sudden certainty, it stepped forward. One paw touched the snow, then another, as it returned to the world it belongs to. This was not goodbye in human terms. It was restoration. A life returned to the wild, exactly where it was meant to be. After a few moments, the wolf turned its head back toward them. It wasn't a long look, and no one claimed to understand what it meant. Yet the pause felt significant, a quiet acknowledgement before instinct took over completely. With a powerful burst of motion, the wolf ran. Within seconds, it disappeared into the trees, becoming once again part of the wilderness. Rescues often end this way, sudden, silent, unresolved. You never truly know what happens afterward. Survival in the wild is never guaranteed. The best anyone can hope for is that the animal has been given another chance. For the rescuers, the story seemed complete, until one night changed everything. Late in the season, another storm swept across the region, strong enough to make travel dangerous. One of the rescue team was driving alone. Then the vehicle slid. Within seconds, the car drifted off the road. The rescuer stepped outside to assess the situation. Silence surrounded the forest, broken only by the wind moving through frozen branches. Darkness pressed in from every direction. Phone signal was weak. Help would take time. That's when a sound emerged from the trees, a low movement in the snow. At first, it was only a shadow between trunks, then another. Shapes moved carefully along the edge of visibility. Wolves. The rescuer froze, heart pounding. Encounters with wild packs demanded caution. Instinct said to remain calm. Avoid sudden movement, show no threat. Instinct said to remain calm. Avoid sudden movement, show no threat. One wolf stepped slightly closer. Moonlight revealed its face. A familiar scar traced along its side beneath thick winter fur. Recognition came instantly. It was the same wolf they had rescued. The moment felt surreal. Two worlds meeting again. The animal stood still, watching quietly, its posture calm but attentive. Behind it, other wolves lingered. At a distance, alert yet not aggressive. The moment felt surreal. The rescued wolf moved forward a few steps, circling the stranded vehicle slowly. It sniffed the air, then paused, looking directly at the human who had once carried it through a storm. There was no fear. Only awareness. There was no fear, only awareness. After a few moments, the wolf turned toward the forest and released a single clear howl. The sound echoed across the snowy landscape, powerful and steady. The rest of the pack responded, their voices joining in harmony before they disappeared. Deeper into the trees, silence returned to the snowy forest. Minutes later, headlights appeared in the distance. Another vehicle approaching along the road. Alerted by earlier radio contact finally reconnecting, help had arrived. The rescuers stood there, watching the dark forest where the wolves had vanished once again. The mystery remained. Maybe it was coincidence, maybe instinct, or maybe nature rarely explains these things. Or maybe in some quiet way, kindness had found its way back. It felt like a message. And the story had become something more, a reminder that compassion leaves traces. The rescuer stood beside the road long after the headlights faded into the distance. Snow continued to fall, covering the fresh tracks, as if nature were erasing evidence. Even after returning home that night, sleep didn't come easily. The image replayed again. The image of the wolf, that same scar, that same steady gaze, and replayed again and again. Logic suggested coincidence, wolves traveled large territories, encounters happened. Yet something about the timing felt different, as though their presence had served a purpose. The following days brought conversation among the team. Some listened with fascination, others with cautious skepticism. Wildlife professionals avoid projecting human emotions. Nature operates through instinct, survival, and learned behavior, not gratitude. And yet no one could deny the strange symmetry of events, a cycle of kindness. Weeks earlier, humans had stepped into a storm to save a dying wolf. That moment mattered. Now, that wolf had appeared again, not attacking, not fleeing, simply watching until safety returned. The story spread quietly. Animals remember more than we assume. As winter loosened its grip, signs of life appeared along the riverbanks. Among the thriving pack was a survivor, a wolf carrying a faint scar, a visible history of hardship and recovery. For the rescue team, success wasn't about control. It was simply intervention at the moment when survival balanced on the edge. Sometimes survival depends on a single moment of compassion, and sometimes that moment echoes far beyond itself. One evening, a distant chorus of howls rose. Not a cry of distress, but the confident voice of a pack thriving. In wildlife rescue, success is often invisible, measured only by continuation. Another season lived, another generation raised. Respect and compassion can alter outcomes in ways that statistics alone cannot explain. Coexistence is our shared future. The rescuers returned to their work as they always had, responding to calls, protecting habitats, and helping injured animals. Each case is different, and each outcome is uncertain. During long winter drives, someone might glance toward the trees, half expecting to see a familiar shape watching from the shadows. Not out of fear, but connection. Once you have carried a wild creature through a storm, a small part of that wilderness stays with you forever. The story of the rescued wolf became a quiet lesson in resilience. Spring arrived, replacing frozen silence with movement. Snow disappeared from the valleys, and new life returned to the forest floor as the cycle of care continued. A wildlife camera captured the pack moving together, strong and confident. Among them, the familiar scarred wolf was not just surviving, it was thriving. The animal had regained its place, proof that respectful intervention can restore balance. Life continued exactly as nature intended. For the rescuers, this knowledge brought a deeper understanding of their work. Rescue is about giving nature a chance to correct itself. The blizzard had nearly ended one life, but compassion had interrupted that outcome just long enough for recovery to take hold. Months later, during a conservation event, a rescuer shared the story. The room fell silent at the mention of the roadside encounter. Someone asked if the wolf recognized its rescuer. The answer was honest. We can't know for sure, but animals remember survival. Compassion toward wildlife reflects responsibility, an understanding that we share ecosystems with fragile, complex lives. The wolf runs free, not owned or tamed, but simply alive. A reminder that kindness crosses the boundary between species. The greatest impact is often unseen. It lives in the continuation of life, in a pack moving through the trees under a vast sky. Kindness returns when we least expect it. Thank you for being part of this story. Choose compassion.